Hello everyone, Books with Banks back again with another video. I'm finally back to continue my reread of Ian C. Esslemont's Path to Ascendancy series. Apologies for the delay. ICFA definitely threw my normal plans and schedule a little bit out of whack, but now I'm back on track again, trying to finish up these 3 books, doing them in audiobook for this reread over the course of the next couple weeks. If you haven't already, it would mean a lot if you could pretty please like and subscribe. Thank you, and let's get into it. So I've just finished listening to the audiobook, and this one again is narrated by John Banks, just like Dancer's Lament was, just like Book 3, Kellanved's Reach is. This is Book 2, Deadhouse Landing, Book 2 of Ian C. Esslemont's prequel trilogy, or prequel series, Path to Ascendancy. It's 3 books now, the 4th one's coming out this year. This prequel series is prequel to most other series Malazan, most of the other things that Esslemont himself has written and that Stephen Erickson has written. In Book 1, Dancer's Lament, we learned all about how the infamous duo of Dancer and Wu met one another, and in this book, they become more of a solid duo, navigating their way through Shadow, through the mysterious Deadhouse, through the seedy gang rivalries of Malaz City, and only now it's Kellanved and Dancer. We had a bit of a name change there, or you have that in this book, and there's lots of instances in these books where characters change their names, just something you need to get used to if you're a Malazan fan. First and foremost, I'll try to keep it to really light spoilers for this video today, for this review. And if you haven't read anything Malazan before and aren't sure if you want to try it out, definitely don't start with this book in particular, but feel free to go start with Book 1 of these prequels, Book 1 being Dancer's Lament. I reviewed Book 1 a few weeks ago, and it's a wonderful book. I still think I prefer that one just a little bit more over this, but this was very good. I really did enjoy it. And very broadly, again, if you're not too familiar with the series, this is a fantasy book mostly concerned with navigating through magic realms called warrens, but also concerned with like knife fights and dark alleyways of a gross little island city. There's some naval combat in here. There's some cool religious zealotry and like Inquisition type of stuff. But yeah, that's essentially the broad gist of what you'll get from Deadhouse Landing. Anyway, for those of you more familiar with Malazan, this book tells the story of how Kellanved and Dancer came to reside in Malaz City for the first time, how they met characters like Surly, the Crust brothers, how Dassam continue to be important in their early days. You also get cameos from people like Dujek, someone named Jack, Tattersail, Hairlock, Calor, Nightshell, just to name a few. But basically, our dynamic duo arrives in Malaz City and quickly find themselves the employers of a rundown bar called Smiley's. And it just so happens that the staff of this bar are all political fugitives from the Napan Isles. Kellanved continues, or known as Wu in the previous book, here he changes his name to Kellanved. He continues to poke and prod where he shouldn't to unravel the mysteries of Shadow, leading our heroes into one of their most grueling adventures yet. Meanwhile, Dassam starts out this book still in Lihang, where we left him in Book 1, Dancer's Lament, but Dassam is taking care of his adoptive daughter, basically adopted daughter, and we get introduced to a character named Taystran in my personal favorite storyline here. A story all about the cult of Drek, Inquisition-esque storytelling, and plenty of public executions by swarms of flesh-eating insects. Really fun stuff. And that should do for the basic intro, or like summary of most of what's going on in this book. So before I go too much into what I thought about it this time around, I wanted to go through some comments I received so I can react to others' takes a little bit on this series up to this point. I think I sounded maybe a little more negative in my first video about this book when I said that the book feels stretched thin, across too many storylines and characters kind of going all over the place. I should emphasize that this is specifically in references to certain storylines, things like the Calor side story. And that while I am a fan of the plethora of characters that we get introduced to, or get to see origin stories for here, I'm not sure that the story itself really called for all of these different cameos, and I think I do want to call some of them, their real function is just a fun cameo. And that combined with the fact that in some cases they feel more like name drops and less like unique and deeper explorations of the character origins. All of that is basically what I mean when I say it feels a little stretched thin. But a commenter had a great point on my last video, and his point was that Esslemont was giving us a window into the chaos that the character Surly, character in this book, that she became so frustrated with in the later years of the Malazan Empire. And for those of you who've read the other series, you'll recognize that Surly's position and kind of attitude about all of this chaos is super, super important for those later series. In particular, there's one dangerous adventure that our main duo goes on, and it takes them away from the political chaos and the gang rivalry stuff that's happening on Malaz Island for a little bit. Well, not just a little bit, for a seriously extended stretch of time. And also in the comments, that person helped to highlight for me this as one of the big strengths of this book in particular, that Esslemont is using all the chaos going on to show where some of those early seeds of kind of tension were forming between this early guard, these early essential players in the foundation of the Empire. So yeah, I wanted to share that with all of you watching who might not have gone through the comments in those previous videos and who might be feeling similar, or who, you know, if you have a different take, like strongly the other way, anything like that, feel free to comment again down below. Also, I was also in those comments seeing more support for the Great Tastrin storyline in this book. I love to see that. So, what did I personally think about Deadhouse Landing this time around? Well, first of all, I am still loving John Banks' narration. He's doing a great job. I will say I wasn't the biggest fan of his Calor performance, but when he gets so many characters so right, I can't be too upset by just one voice sounding a little bit off. I also really enjoyed the Cartharon Crust character. While Esslemont keeps Surly, one of the Napans, at arm's length throughout the book, largely because she herself is trying to be very protective and like closed off about her identity. Esslemont is able to put a lot of the more like straightforward thinking from the point of view of the Napan character group, that whole why they're on the island, what their plans are. Esslemont basically uses the Cartharon Crust character and his sections to convey a lot of that group's motivations. This is also how we're introduced to a few Malazan Marine cameos, but those aren't as interesting as Cartharon's reflections on like his gang, his little group's current situation. Everything with the old broken down ship that they wind up using, Kellenved's deal with the Napans, where that ship leads a rival vessel at one point in the story. I really enjoyed that whole plot, or that whole kind of that section. It was the right mixture of naval combat scenes, exploration of Crust's character, and also comedy from Kellenved's silly schemes. I will say both the first time around and this time, I couldn't really connect with the Tattersail storyline, and I'd love to hear if this story worked for other people out there. Maybe it's because she and her, I forget, I don't know if he's like her husband, he's the admiral, king, partner type person. Whatever his title is, he's like basically the ruler of Malaz City, maybe the whole island, I can't remember. But he rules, his name's Mock, and Mock's Hold, and Tattersail and him, they both seem to be sort of kind of stuck in their own stubborn mindsets. So I'm not sure if this was something that Esslemont was actively trying to explore. And yeah, because like, so Tattersail, she wants to use her powers of magery to kind of find a comfy but powerful place for herself in high society, and then Mock, he just wants to kind of laze about and think of himself as some great leader, when really he's just a kind of a lazy pirate king. And they both are humbled in their own ways by the end of the story, but of all the shenanigans going on in Malazan City, Tattersail's part feels just a bit too disconnected. It just doesn't quite do it for me. And I've already mentioned how I don't really understand what the Calor story adds here, except for maybe distracting powerful people in the city from what Kellenbed is up to. Not sure, feels a little bit of a stretch to say that that's why Calor's here. Can't really put my finger on it. If anyone else out there has a better read or a better understanding of his inclusion in the story, please let me know. And now, onto the positive side of things. I feel like Esslemont continues to build the brilliant dynamic between Kellenbed and Dancer, a dynamic he laid the foundations for in Dancer's Lament, but now he really gets to have fun with it. The friendship and trust they have in each other, I think really shines through at several moments in this book. And I think that's really important for us Malazan fans to understand how they get to where they eventually get to. And I've mentioned it already, but while everything with them in one particularly unfortunate sequence of events they go through, while I enjoy all of that, and all of that serves the purpose of the series well, my favorite two storylines are actually those of Dassem and the story of Taishran. So first, Dassem. Dassem is a mysterious and wonderful character who rarely flits in and out of the other series in the Malazan world, and while we got a glimpse at a really young version of him in Dancer's Lament, I don't think it's until this book, Deadhouse Landing, when I feel like Esslemont is really giving Dassem his own storyline and motivations. I think we really learn more about his relationship with Hood, and more about what he considers his Dassem's personal moral obligations. And these happen to be obligations that really naturally, I think, bring him back in contact and in line with some of the more exciting and more central plot lines to this book. And then Taishran, a character I didn't really spend too much time thinking about in any of the other series, despite his occasionally important actions and decisions he makes there, or maybe orders that he's following there. But here, in this book, I think Esslemont really lets him shine. Not only does this story introduce Taishran as a devout acolyte of the direct cult and religion, but the story around his introduction is, I think, really all about the dangers of religious zeal and how there can be no justice when the people in charge are so effectively weaponizing that religious zeal against any individuals. I felt the end of the storyline wasn't the best part of it, though. I feel like it really hits its climax about 2/3 of the way through the book, and then all that's really left for the author to do is to try and connect this amazing story that he's been telling up to this point to the rest of the book, and kind of bringing those stories in line with each other. It wasn't as exciting as I think I was hoping for. All that said, though, it's still my favorite part of this book. Anyway, enough from me for now. I'm going to start listening to the audiobook for Book 3, Kellenbed's Reach, and I'll see you all in a week to go over my thoughts on returning to the first half of that book. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Bye.